In this video, I'll be covering the admin side functionality for the DeltaNet 6 Creative Studio. It's very similar in most ways to the agent side. In fact, if you're creating a print design, then that interface is exactly the same on the agent side as it is on the admin side, and that interface is covered in detail in the advanced agent side video for Creative Studio. So if you'd like details on how to use that, go ahead and switch over to that video, and that'll give you all the details there. In this one, we'll go over the admin-related functionality for the print side designs for Creative Studio, as well as the HTML-based or eCard-based design editor that's only available on the admin side at this point. So let's go into DeltaNet 6 Creative Studio from the admin side and take a look. So to get there, we're going to go down to Marketing and down to Creative Studio. And then you can see you have all the templates available to the company laid out here. Now the admin functionality consists of the ability to restrict these from view or availability for the admin side. So just in this interface alone, I have this option here that I can click if I don't want that template to be visible. So you can see if I click that lock, it turns red, and then this template will not be visible to the agents. So if I click it again, now it is unchecked and it's visible. So that is how you can set that up so that if you want to remove those. Now the next piece we have here in what you will primarily be using this interface for is for creating brand new templates. So to do that, we're going to click on Create Your Own. And now we can choose from HTML or Canvas designs. So as I said, the advanced agent video covers most of the details of the Canvas design. So we will just jump into that and cover a few things first that aren't really covered in that video. So I'm going to click on Canvas Design. And now this opens up the Canvas editor. So from here, you would select the type of design you want to create. So we'll just do a flyer and 8.5 by 11. The only differences in those designs is the size of the canvas that you'll be working with, but then you can further modify that down here if you wanted to create kind of an odd size design. Now beyond that, again, most of the details of how to create this, how to use each of these tools and actually create a design in the system is covered in that advanced video. So the admin side functionality is going to consist primarily of saving it. So if I were to build a design here, as per all the instructions in that video, and click on Save, I now have the option to save this as a public design. So as an admin, I would go in here, select Save, and then I can either save this so it's just accessible on the admin side. So if it's not done yet and I'm not ready to make that available to agents at all, I could just put in my title here, put in whatever choice I have for the size. So if I've changed the canvas, like if I started on 8.5 by 11 but I changed it to something custom, I'll probably want to switch this to Other so that it matches up with those sizes. And then I would give it a title and just click Save. So this would be available for me to pull up on the admin side from that point forward and then make changes to as I see fit and then resave as public if I want to. Now if I'm saving this as a public design that I want to be able to make available to all of the agents in my company, I can click Save as Public Template, and now I'm going to give this thing the categories that I want it to show up in. So if I click on this, you can see that the categories show up. So I'll go ahead and select one here. If it fits in multiple categories, I can add multiple here. And then if somebody uses the category filter on this interface, or if the agent, once this is set as public and saved, if an agent goes in and they filter to this category with the drop-down, this is one of the templates that'll appear. Now the other thing you can do is you can go in under keywords and you can type in any number of keywords here just separated by commas. So I can type in even company name if I want to. So if I wanted to be able to search for templates by my company name to find the ones that I've created, I can make that a keyword. And I can go through here and say, just add in some keywords for, how about seasonal, autumn, fall. So what I'm doing here is just putting in search terms and separating them by commas so that a user could go in here, type in a keyword, and then get this template to come up in the results. So it's just a shortcut for them to be able to find the kind of templates that they're looking for. So it's a good idea to really think through what you put in for keywords on these. Now once this is all set up, I would just click on Save, and that saves a new public template that would, by default, depending on my company settings, be available to all agents. Now it is possible that you are defaulting templates to invisible to agents until you go in and make them visible, but by default it's generally all templates are visible unless you go in and make them invisible using that lock that we just looked at. So that is something to keep in mind here. Now the other thing is if you have created some folders in here in this file system, you can save this template to a specific folder as well, which can be nice for just keeping things organized. those folders can be controlled under this Uploads button down here, which again, the Uploads button functionality and how that file system work is also covered in the Advanced Agent video. So we'll go ahead and close this out, but before we do, there is one additional thing you can do here. If I had not started with a new design, if instead I went to the Creative Studio main page and I selected a template, then if I were making modifications to that template and I didn't want to save it as a new template, I would have an additional checkbox here that says Overwrite Existing. Actually, it says Overwrite Existing Template. And then if I were to check that box, instead of creating a new template when I save this one, it would overwrite the existing one. So if I pull up a template and I just want to make some changes to it and resave it, I would check that box. If I pull up an existing template and I want to make an alternative version of it that maybe has, a handful of variations to it, I can use that as a starting point and then make my variations and then save it here as public without overwriting the original, so it would be a brand new template in the interface. So there you go. That is how this save functionality works. Now, the other thing that you can do here that makes more sense from an admin side than it does from an agent side is the ability to implement listing information into a block of text. So if I go in here and let's say that I had built out my design and now I just want to put in a text section, so we'll go in here and select text. I want to say check out my listing at, and then use these data fields to actually insert a piece of listing data within my paragraph. So if I am implementing that data into a paragraph, not making it its own section or its own thing where I would connect the fields as per everything in that other video, then what I would do is go in here and then select the piece that I want to insert. So we have listing information and bedrooms, bathrooms, here we are, location, address. So check out my listing at listing address with address and basic information with bedrooms. It'd move along faster if I could type. There we go. Bedrooms and bathrooms, and then insert. So now here's my paragraph, and then what it'll do is when this is saved, if an agent goes in, they select this template and they add listing information to this template, that listing information will be picked up and inserted in here accordingly automatically. The nice thing about that is that this paragraph will then be reformatted to fit the size of the information that goes there. I mean, obviously a number is not going to be as long as this string here listing bedrooms. It's just going to be a 3, for example. So it obviously doesn't need to be nearly as long. This allows the paragraph to reformat itself, including that information. So that is functionality that is probably not going to be used as often, especially as it relates to agent information when done from the agent side or when the agent is building a template for themselves. Other than that, all of this Canvas functionality, the things that you can do with text and elements and colors and backgrounds and images, all of those things are covered in that Advanced Agent video. Now, the next thing you can do, and what we'll go over in detail here, is I'm going to go back to Marketing and Creative Studio, and we're going to take a look at the HTML designer. So to give you an idea of why there are two different designers, they really do two different things and can be used, for two different purposes. So depending on what you're going for, you may use one over the other. So I'm going to go back to Create Your Own, and this time I'm going to click on HTML Design. So the benefit of a Canvas design, which was the kind of print-based editor that we were just looking at, is that whatever you see in the editor, your final product there, will look exactly like that to the customer that ultimately receives it if that is sent out via email. Also, you're going for a static size, so it is going to print out in exactly that way. If you were to print it out yourself or send it to a third-party printer, if you select 8.5 by 11, you get an 8.5 by 11 template. The drawback is it doesn't have any dynamic functionality as far as how it is displayed. So once it's finally rendered out, what you see is exactly what you're going to get. If I build something here, because it is interpreted, it's HTML based, if I view it in a smaller device, it will reformat itself to fit that device. So you have the ability to see in this editor what those will look like even before you send it. And then it can do things like changing the size of the text or changing the orientation of the images, stacking things on smaller viewports. So it does have that ability. It also has the ability to insert an indeterminate amount of blocks of information. So, for example, if I were to create a canvas-based design and I put 2 blocks in it to hold listing information, so it's, say, a listing picture and then some text describing the listing, if I put 2 blocks in that design can handle 2 listings. With this, because it is all dynamic, I can add in a repeating listing section that will allow it to support multiple listings. And then I can just, when I actually go to use this template, I can select as many listings as I want, and they'll just keep populating into the template and keep stacking the template and just making the size of the template bigger to support that additional information. So that is the nice thing about being able to create these this way. Now the drawback is, because it is interpreted by whoever is viewing the email, or rather the email client being used. So for example, if you're using Outlook, one person that is using Outlook, Outlook is interpreting the code for this email and displaying it the way it thinks it should. Whereas someone else who has a Gmail account might go into their Gmail account and be viewing it there. So now Gmail is the one that is interpreting this code and displaying it how they want based on their interpretation. Therefore, the person viewing it in Outlook might see something that is a little bit different than the person that's viewing it in Gmail. That is just the nature of HTML. So, and that is the drawback to building a design this way instead of the other way. So as you can see, it really depends on what you're going for and what the scenario is as to which kind of template will make more sense to you. So now that we have gone over that, let's go ahead and take a look at this HTML editor so that you can see how to use it. First off, as you've already seen, we have these buttons up here at the top left, and you can see if I hover over them, it'll give me a little tip there to tell me what those are all about. But these just change the viewport so I can see what my design would look like in different size viewports once I have my design all built out. Now as we move over here, the next thing we have is view components. So if we have components on here, once we've started adding some things in here, you'll see that this toggles the way that those are displayed. We have a full screen button, which can be particularly nice. If I were to click that, it would actually open this up so that I can see it. Well, it would fill my monitor up. It would fill my whole screen up so that I can see the view space better. So I'm not going to do that now for this video, but if you were to do that, it can sometimes be a lot easier to work in this design space when it's, filling your whole monitor up. Now the next piece we have here is view code. So if I click here, this is a code viewer that will allow me to see the HTML code generated by this as we've added designs in. We have an import function, which is particularly nice if you have built something somewhere else and you want to import it into this system. You can click here and you can just paste the HTML code that you've created into this box and click import, and then the system will actually interpret that HTML code and then drop it into this editor so that you can modify it. So if you do use some third-party software and you export what you've built as HTML, you can import it here and get a pretty good approximation of that design that you can go through and edit or just save if you wanted to just add in a template that you created elsewhere. So that can be particularly handy. The next piece we have here is toggle images, so you can turn those on and off within the viewport. We have an undo button and a redo button, which should be familiar from many other software programs that you have used in the past. We have a clear canvas button, so if you want to clear this whole thing out and start over, you can do that. We have open, which will allow you to open designs that have been saved in this interface before. So if you've already built something out and saved it, you can open that up. I'm assuming it is another HTML design like this. And you have the option to finally save. And if I were to click on save, you can see this is the same interface that you see on the Canvas side, or the print editor side. Now the next buttons we have over here have to do with our actual design tools. So we have our Style Manager, which we'll look at in a little bit more detail as we go. But this would give me the ability to change styling elements of things that I add into this template. We have our Trait Manager, which allows us to look at some kind of pre-built traits for these. Most specifically, you will use that for like a read-only functionality if you wanted to put something in here that you don't want the agents to be able to edit. And then next, this is actually a DOM viewer, so this is we're getting into pretty advanced stuff with this one, but what it'll do is actually lay out all of the DOM elements from the HTML code that this editor generates. So we'll take a look at it, but I won't go into that with too much detail. And then lastly, open blocks over here. This will be your primary design space. So this is where you're going to build kind of the core of your template. All right, so let's start building. So the first thing we'll do is if I open up Design Tools, you can see it gives me some pre-built sections and layouts that I can use for my design. So we'll go ahead and do a full width image. So we'll drop that in here. I just drag it in and drop it. So now there's my image. Now I want to change this image to something else, so we'll just double click on it, and you can see it opens up my file browser in here. And I like Tux, we'll put Tux in there. So here's Tux, the Linux Penguin. So we'll shrink this down a little bit because Tux is a little big for my taste. There we go. So now we've got him in place. Now let's say I want to make some modifications to this section. And now that we have something here, we can kind of use some of these other tabs. So I want to put a background behind Tux. So I'm just going to select this area that he's in. And we're going to go over here and bring up our design elements. So you can see we now have some information here. There is some advanced functionality for creating HTML classes that you can apply to these things that can simplify some things for you. But a lot of this is going to have to do with having some knowledge of HTML and CSS and how that stuff works, and then having just the creativity and the foresight to create something. This comes down more to what you can think of than how you use the interface. So I can only cover so much of that because I'm not a designer. So now, in this case, we're going to add a background. So I'm going to go down here, Decorations. We have a background section. So I'll just click on my colors there to get a nice color picker. And then, let's see, like kind of a dark red brown kind of color. I think that fits behind Tux. Why not? Let's get our color back here. There we go. So now we've got a background color behind Tux. Now let's say we want to put some text below it. So we're going to go back over here, open this section up. So we have our design tools. Let's scroll down a bit, and we have a text block. So we'll go ahead and put that there. And now we have a spot for some text. So let's just double click. We have a little bit of a text editor here, which can just help you along when it comes to setting that whole thing up. There we go. Check out all of my great listings. Get an A in there. Check out all of my great listings. We're going to put some listings below this, I promise. So there we are. Now we have some text in there. Now if I want to modify the text, you can see I have the tools in here to change a little bit of the styling attached to these. But I can also go over here, back to my decoration settings. Now in addition to decorations, we've got typography. I can use that to increase the size of that. We can change alignment, so just the text functionality that you are used to seeing. So we'll go ahead and go with font, and let's change that out. Now you see you have less font choices here, and that's because this is not going to be rendered out as an image. So that has to be commonly used fonts in order to display correctly for those that are actually viewing it. So we'll do that, and there you have it. And we can underline it also. There we go. That looks okay. Like I said, I'm not a designer, but we're doing all right. We're making progress. So now we have some text added in there. Now the next thing we're going to do is take a look at some of the data-based sections that we can add into these. So we're going to go back over to blocks, and we'll close out our design tools for now. Just keep in mind that I put in a single image section, but I do have the options of putting these sections in like different sizes, and then I can drag elements within these. So now I have these sections. I could go in and I could say I want to put an image in here. So now I have a full width image, but it's just the width of the section that I put it in. So you can see where you have a lot of options as far as really designing these out, and it's just a matter of dragging in the sections and then dragging the components into each place where you want to put them. So you can build something out completely from scratch like that. But we have some presets in here for you, and I'm just clicking on these and pressing delete to make them go away. There we go. But you do have the ability to choose from some pre-built sections that can simplify that process for you. So we'll close out design tools, and we're going to go with listing modules and agent modules. Now those are two that are very nice for just building out these pre-built sections really quickly instead of building each one from scratch. So let's go to listing modules, and let's say that I want to have a multi-listing section. So I want to be able to show more than one listing at the same time on this template. I can go with this two-column multi-listing section, and I can drop this in. And now you can see it looks like I have a single image here, or a single listing. But what this section will do is when it's included on this template, when this is saved, if a user pulls this up to view it, they'll be able to select multiple listings, and as they select listings, it'll put them in and stack them based on this orientation. So it'll put one on the left, one on the right, so it'll create that two-column stack with this information. Now keep in mind that because that's what we drew in here, we're not going to want to use all of this width, because when they add more than one listing, it's just going to keep dropping them in next to each other. So it's really only going to have so much width to work with. Now, we have this thing put in here. Now let's say we want to add some additional information to it. So we've added in our toListing section. So it's going to keep creating sections based on this format. Image 1 is going to fill in with the image 1 from the listing, so the first image from the listing. This will automatically fill with the address, price, beds, baths, and square feet. Now let's say we want to put acreage in here also. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse my listing modules, and we'll go down here to listing, and let's grab acres. So if I drag that into my design, I want that to show up right there. So now it'll have a section for acres or acreage that drops in right below that. Now if I want to label that as well, this is also editable as a text section, so I can go in here and I can say acres. And there you go. So now we have an acres section there. And it's labeled and everything. How about that? So there you have it. Now the next thing we can do is exactly the same thing for agent information. So we have pre-built modules for those. So let's just go ahead and open that up and say, all right, we want this to be a single agent template, but we do have choices for multi-agent. So multi-agent rows means that this system would expect us to put multiple agents in here, though you could put in only one. So when someone's using this, if they select multiple agents, it's going to put each agent on their own row. This one, on the other hand, would stack them in the way that you see here. So 3 columns along and then create 3 columns with them and stack that information accordingly. So these sections, like I said, are just nice as quick ways you can kind of build out whole sections so you're not putting in all these tags and things from scratch. So we're just going to do a single agent on this one. So we'll say a single agent horizontal row, drag it out here, and I want to make this a new section down here. So we'll just drag that in. And now we have our agent. Our agent photo will be inserted here automatically, and it'll pick up their display name, title, all that information accordingly. I can do the same thing with a, here we are, here's the same section but with a company logo attached. So now the company logo will show up here. So you can see the kind of thing that you can do with this. So we'll go ahead and delete that. So there's our agent, and now just like the listing information, we'll get rid of our extra table there. Just like our listing information, if I wanted to add some individual agent items in here that aren't showing up, I can close out my agent modules, and I can just go down to agent, and these are all the data fields that are available for me for agents. So if I wanted to put their slogan in here, I can just drag this out, and maybe we want to put that down here as its own piece and make their slogan a nice big spot at the bottom. So we'll go ahead and click on that. Go over here to our design tools, typography, and we're going to make that one bigger. There we go. Now we'll have a great big agent slogan down there. Let's give it a color too. I'm having fun now. There we are. So there it is. There's our agent slogan. All right. Now, even though I have a multi-listing section up here, I do have the ability to use that listing information to modify this further if I want as well. So we'll go back over here to our elements. And let's bring our listing information back up, and let's say that I want these multiple listing sections to work out the way I have them. So we know it's going to create 2 columns here. But let's say I want a couple more images, keeping in mind in this case that they would be pretty tiny when it starts stacking these on top of each other. But we're going to do it anyway because it'll be fun. So let's scroll down here through our agent data fields, and here we have an image 1. So let's well, we already have image 1 in there. Let's drag in image 2. So there we are, image 2 down below. So we'll make that quite a bit smaller. Here we go, and image 3, put that guy in right next to it. Now it's too big to stack next to it. It's going to wait till we shrink it down some. There we go. So now we have our image 3. Now as you can plainly see, these are not very uniform. So what I'm going to do is manually go in and edit some information about these to make them identical. So we'll take our image 2, click on that, and go back over to our design settings for that. We'll close out typography, and right now we're concerned with dimensions because we want to change the size of this. So I can see this image is 116 by 87. So now we'll click on its brother here, and we'll make it match 116 by 87. There we go. So now we have 2 matching pieces there. But they're all stacked together, and I don't think I like that. So we're going to select the first one, and we're going to add some margin to it to make it a little bit bigger. So, or not really make it bigger, but separate it out. So we'll go ahead and put a 5 pixel margin around it. So we'll put 5, 5, 5, and 5. And we're going to make the one next to it match. There we go. So now we have a little bit of uniformity, a little separation there, so we're looking pretty good. But I think I want a border on these also, so we're going to click on that, and now we can add that under decoration. So we'll close out dimension, decorations, and let's add a border here. So border, we'll make it a 3-pixel border. And we'll make it like a dark gray. See if we can get this to cooperate here. There we go. So we have kind of a dark gray border there. Now we can actually take this color, and I'm going to copy that. We'll go into our next one. We'll paste it in, make it 3 pixels, and now that one's going to match. Paste it in, 3 pixels, and now it matches. So you can see how we can take this section, which is already designed to handle to accommodate multiple listings for us, and by modifying this, every section that's added in here, when I add listings to this template, when I'm actually using it, is going to automatically make every section look exactly like this for each listing that I add to it. So I just modify this one section, and because this is a multiple listing section that has been added in here, the system is going to be able to handle that. So that is kind of a nice way to be able to have some efficiency there and handle that kind of workflow where you just edit one thing and it's going to take care of the rest for you. So there we go. There's our listing information. Now, if I want to make modifications to these sections, I can still do that. I can still go in here and select that, and I can add backgrounds. I can do all kinds of things. So it's really just your creativity is the limit here. So there we go. We've got a pretty good design coming out. Now, just to check through the rest of the things we have here in our pre-built design elements, we'll close that out. So design tools we've been over, and you've seen the things we can do there. Listing modules are these listing sections, so multi-listing or single listing, and you can stack those up. Agent modules, create your agent section or your pre-built agent sections down here. Now in addition to those, and we've also been over the listing and agent information respectively if we want to add some one-off information in here. But the next one we have is testimonials. So if I add that in, you can see I can create multi-testimonial sections, or I can pull in individual bits of data from testimonials. So let's say we want a testimonial section to show up below our listings, but right above our agent. We'll just go ahead and drag that out, and just like the other sections, it drops it right in. This is meant to handle multiple testimonials, so now if an agent were to use this template, they would be able to select what testimonials they have that they want to insert on this template, and it would just stack them as per the arrangement that is described right here. And in addition to that, if I wanted to fill in any other information in those sections, this one already has them all. So we have our rating, our name, and our review. But if we didn't, I could drag that information in. So we'll back out of that one. The next one we have here is companies. So if we want to add our company information, and I would say we probably generally do, we'll go ahead and drag the company name up here. There we go. So that'll show up within our background in that section. And put a phone number in here right below it. So that'll have company name, company phone, and let's put the company address in there also. So just like the other sections, I drag that data in wherever I'd like it, and that's where it'll display. Now you can see this black on a dark background is not going to work out well, but as we've already seen, I can click on that. I can go back over to my design settings and typography, and I can change that color to whatever. There we go. White's probably a good idea there. So there you have it. And you can see I used a shortcut there by clicking on each of those. Once I had selected it for the first, it went ahead and updated them for me. So just save a little bit of a time saver there. And like we went over with the other sections, I could then change the size or the formatting or the font of these to make them stand out in different ways, depending on what I'm going for this design. So back over to our design elements. So that is the company information. The company logo, obviously important, but we can drag that in wherever we'd like as well. So we'll close that out. Now office is going to be very similar information, only instead of dragging in the company name, I'm dragging in the office name and address. So that's something that you'll often want to show down here at the bottom of one of these designs. So I could drag that in if I'd like. I could even use design tools to put a section down here that is dedicated to that and then drag into that section. And then listing information is the individual listing information we've already looked over, and agent information is exactly the same. All of that information we've looked over. Now that we have built out this full template, we'll say that this is a good template that's finished. Just to show you what these other items will look like, if I look at the DOM information, we can now see it has given me an HTML breakdown of everything that is within this. So you can see that I can extend these sections as we go, and it highlights them over here as I select them. So you can really expand out all these different DOM elements. And I can even hide individual ones, if that helps me with my design process. The next thing I can do here is, let's say that this company information is something that I don't want the agents to be able to edit. I can select that section and then go over here to my components, and we can make that. Well, one thing we can do is we can check this box and make it read-only. So what that does is that prevents the agent from being able to change that. So if I want the company name, phone, and email address on this design to stay that way and the agent to be unable to manipulate that, then I can do that by just selecting them and checking this read-only box. Also, if I have some components here that I want to automatically fill in with the primary color, like the primary or secondary company colors, I can select those and I can use this information to select primary colors. So primary background, secondary background is going to correspond to my primary and secondary company colors, and the same goes with text, my primary and secondary text colors. So that way, instead of me defining what color these should be, it's going to just look at whatever the company colors are and handle that stuff for me. So that can be kind of nice, especially as it relates to the text. Now the other thing is they will show up as primary and secondary colors for the agent. So in order to make those color sections editable, you'll need to set them as primary or secondary. And then when the agent loads up this template, they can use the interface that should look very similar if you are familiar with the current eCards and Flyer system or the previous eCards and Flyer system, as the case may be. There were sections over on the left that allow you to define what those primary and secondary colors should be for this template. So by making these primary or secondary color sections, it makes them correspond to those boxes so that the agent can change those when they actually send out this template. So there you go. Now the other thing we'll notice is if I go back over here to view code, it has actually written out all of my HTML code. So this thing has basically been writing this code as I use the editor, so everything is built out for me there. So there you have it. So once I have my complete design built out, which again, I didn't build the prettiest design, but again, I'm not geared for that. So you'll build out a much nicer design than I have, but you can see that the limitation really just comes down to what it is you want to build. It comes down to your imagination. So once I'm all done, I'll just click on Save and then go through exactly the same process I would have if I had built a Canvas template, where I can save it just for myself so I can come back in and manipulate it more later, or I can go in and I can save it for the public use. So save it so that any agent in the company will be able to view it. And then I can still control its visibility based on the setting that we looked at on the original template or template viewing page. Again, categories and keywords can be very important in helping you be able to find your template later on. So there you go. That is the advanced functionality and related to creating HTML templates on the admin side in the DeltaNet Creative Studio. Again, for a detailed explanation of all the things you can do with the Canvas style or print style editor, take a look at the advanced agent video, which we have linked to in this video description. So, thanks a lot.